This is Business Talk, and I'm Norman Liss. This program is dedicated to helping people in business do business better. And we're talking about a subject that is of great interest to me now because, frankly, I haven't known this term. The subject is customer bonding, and that's the subject of a new book that is co-authored by my guests today, who are Richard Cross and Janet Smith. And I welcome you here today as the authors, as husband and wife. Mm-hmm. And so let's get right into it. What is this thing called customer bonding?
Well, customer bonding is as we've written about it in our book, is the process of getting intimate with your customers, getting to know them so well that when you are doing your advertising and promotion, it's not so much a question of doing something to them as it is of doing things with them.
I don't quite understand that. Isn't it a basic concept, certainly in a service business, to get to know your customer well? Advertising agencies have gone out into the marketplace and worked in a supermarket to see how the product works. Is this different than that?
Mm-hmm. It goes beyond that, Norman, because what you're talking about we might think of as market research. And the purpose of marketing research like that is to find out what the customer is thinking and what the customer wants so that a message can be targeted back to them. It's still a matter of doing something to them.
And you use the term with the customer or the client, I suppose,
right.
in whatever the case may be.
Right.
Because this applies to service businesses and products as well. And
right. The concept applies to all kinds of businesses. It applies to nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. It applies to anyone who thinks of their constituents as being customers or people that they have relationships with.
So explore this further.
Right.
Put it into other terms. What does bonding mean?
Bonding is the process of getting close to the customer so that you understand their needs. They tell you things that they're not ordinarily going to tell. A marketer involves creating a dialogue between yourself and the customer so that's continuous and ongoing, where you collect that information into a database and then you develop ways of relating to the customers based on that information that's collected. It may involve doing things that are unusual and different from the way businesses normally think about doing business, such as events and getting together with your customers, or getting your customers together so they can relate to each other.
Now, you both come from marketing backgrounds, so how did you get into this concept of
I think it's helpful when you're out talking with customers in a consulting role or in front of audiences to kind of watch the reactions to the things that you're saying, and we learn a lot from our customers in our own consulting practices as marketers as to what issues are they struggling with. And the question of loyalty, how do I get a customer in the first place? Obviously, everybody's struggling in this competitive market. Their competitive
times
markets
are different today, aren't they? So that there is a need for this now more than ever before?
There is indeed, because not only are people just generally competing harder, but consumers are more resistant to our advertising messages in general. They're hit with the average per day individual count per consumer is about 3,500 messages a day, whether that's from PR, from advertising, from something hitting your mailbox, and people are increasingly resistant to that. It's harder to break through the clutter, and therefore it's harder to gain a customer in the first place, and then it's also harder to keep them. Everybody else is after your customer as well.
You mentioned the word loyalty before I took you off on a tangent here. Let's get into that a little bit. How does one establish loyalty?
Well, I like to think of the customer bonding system as an approach of ever deepening the loyalty that the customer has to you. If you understand the goal of your marketing is to create a bond between you and the customer, one that's based on trust, one that's based on an understanding of that customer, real information about what they're interested in, you have the opportunity then to make every marketing action go a little deeper with that loyalty. And we start in the book with the very first level of customer bonding is awareness, where obviously first someone has to know you're there. Whether it's a store or a product or a service, you have to create some type of awareness in the marketplace.
Are there techniques which are illustrated in this book? Awareness is just one of the steps that you outline in the book.
Yes.
Are there techniques which you explore for creating this awareness?
Well, at the awareness level, Norman, we look at techniques that you might think of as standard advertising, marketing, promotion techniques, publicity and public relations, and so forth. And we work from them and say this is the way that is normally done, and here's how companies are using these channels to establish a sense of awareness.
So you're in the marketplace, you're in a service business, and there are a lot of other people doing what you're doing, offering similar services. You think that you're better or unique in an aspect of it. How do you create an awareness about yourself?
Well, the issue that you raise is a good one there, which is that today so many products are really commodities. That one bookstore sells, the bookstore in the Crown Book sells the same book as the small bookstore in Tarrytown, and the issue there is how do you establish a distinction in the mind of the customer when the product is essentially the same? The bottom line for the small business is that aside from establishing awareness, is also creating the relationship with the customer. It is about the only way that they can differentiate themselves from the large and mostly impersonal kind of category killer store.
So, but first you have to have, if you're talking about a retail store, you've got to bring the person into the store.
Correct.
And then do something
Right.
to establish, we're back to bonding again, to bond with that person so that
Right.
so that if you're a large store, that Barnes & Noble says come in and browse and use it as a library, and the small store says I will give you great personal service and answer your questions, and you just not be one of many faces in there. So both of them are bonding in different ways.
And more than that, if you're a small book seller in Tarrytown, New York, for example, why not go out into the community and get involved in supporting activities and being present at town fair and other events that create a presence in your consumer's mind? I mean, the Barnes & Nobles are not likely to do that or don't have the advantage of the local connection that you may have. So you can really create that kind of everywhere sense, be present in your customer's life. And if you think of that, then you don't worry so much about differentiating yourself based on product and market positioning. You're making your marketing much more the message of who you are.
Visibility in the community of your audience.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, participation in community events is one that you've just outlined.
Right.
How about a service business?
And sponsorship
Sponsorship.
of community events. And really, we talk about in the book getting involved in the lifestyle of the customer
Lifestyle.
and showing the customer that you understand, that you share even their values. And at the identity level of bonding, which is beyond awareness, the second level beyond awareness, we give some examples about how companies like Ben & Jerry's have established a firm identity in the mind of the customer as an organization that's a socially responsible business, and they support the 1% for Peace movement. And recently we visited the Ben & Jerry's factory in Vermont, and the first thing that you're greeted with is an opportunity to make a contribution to the Children's Defense Fund.
Like McDonald's does, certainly, to a great extent in the community, and certainly in the Westchester community, Texaco is a very large presence. They're involved in so many different activities, and they're just a few examples that
we know from our research, Norm, that a good number of consumers are interested and willing in changing their buying habits based on the values that they share with the businesses that they share, that they know that a business has. The Body Shop is another example of a company that promotes itself as being against animal testing and that supports free trade, developing third world economies and so
rights
forth,
and, yeah.
workers' rights and so forth.
And sponsorship, of course, down to the smallest local business, involves supporting a little league team and having your name on the back
Sure.
of the uniform. And so much of that goes on. You don't have to be a giant company in
Absolutely.
order to participate. There are all the levels. What are some of the other elements in bonding that you cover in your book?
Well, we're actually touching on the identity bonding level at this point, and that gets into the whole idea that you want to connect with your customers and your prospective customers as well. And you want to connect with them in a special way, involving their values and their emotions. And, we find that some of the companies like Ben & Jerry's and The Body Shop, have made a really strong connection, and customers are just, very proud of the fact that they shop there, and that kind of identity, they know who you are, they know what you stand for. You are willing to, come to them and say, I share this with you, and make a commitment to showing them that you do that. And it's not just something that you say, it's actually something that you demonstrate in your business.
These points, Janet, do relate to small businesses, retail businesses, service businesses as well.
Consumer. It's really across the board. In fact, in one conversation after a presentation earlier this year, one woman came up and said, I'm in human resources, and these concepts apply to what I have to do to try to develop loyalty within a rather high turnover employee environment. And we also find, we talk in the book about other environments like political fundraising, nonprofit organizations. No matter who your constituents are or your customers are, you can use these concepts to just kind of orient yourself around loyalty as a goal for all of your marketing activities.
And we're talking about new business, potential customers. Are we also talking about existing customers? Does it relate the same way?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Well, demonstrating, it's what we call in the book double duty advertising and double duty promotion, which means that you can accomplish more than one thing by doing a particular thing. For example, if you let people know that you support a cause, that can bring in new business, and it also reinforces the relationship you have with your existing customers. In that sense, it does double duty.
What are some of the other elements? I know your book is broken down into 5 or 6 different categories.
Yes.
What are some of the other elements?
Well, when you get into the third element, the third degree, as we call it, of customer bonding, we call it relationship bonding. And things start getting very interesting at relationship bonding, because that's when we bring in what we call the information core. This is something that wouldn't have existed 10 years ago. It simply wasn't feasible for companies to develop databases with the names and addresses of their customers and compile a lot of information about what they were interested in and use that information in their marketing programs. But it is possible today. All you need, in fact, is a PC, and you're capable of setting up a pretty sophisticated
Explain
database.
that. Go into that. How do you use your database to build a relationship?
Well, that's been the question that has been on the minds of marketing experts all across the country, from large to small. And I think a lot of books have been written about, how do I develop better relationships with my customers? How do I do targeted marketing? There are a lot of ways, and everything that we see from the airline frequent flyer programs to the new credit cards, like GM's highly successful was Visa, MasterCard came out.
How does this relate
2
to a
years
small
ago.
business, Janet?
Well, I think the concepts that are used by these major marketers can be easily emulated by a small business, and that is that you need to recognize your customers in some way for their loyalty. And that may mean that you're sending them a thank you card for their last purchase from you, and in some way acknowledging that you value their business. That could be the simplest form of that. You need to reward their business in some way. I mean, if they're going to be buying from you repeatedly, you want to make that clear to them that they are a preferred customer, and whether it's in better credit terms or actual discounts or some type of reward, hopefully that's not going to cut the margin of your product.
Reminds me of something very similar, a small business that says to a customer, when you come back, we're going to give you $5 off your bill. and then they run ads which say, bring in this coupon and we'll give you $7 off the bill. So what they're saying is, hey, for non-customers, you'll get more than if you're a customer, which to me is kind of a negative way of looking at it.
I think so. In
Well,
that
there's
case.
what you're basically onto the concept of doing things to bring customers back. The thing to answer your question about the use of the technology and the use of a computer, that makes things different from just telling a customer when you come back, bring this coupon, is that you can keep track over time of purchases, and you can make your reward. You can make your rewards greater as depending on the length of time that someone has been a customer, or the amount of purchases that they've made from you, and you can then communicate that reward information to them directly to their home through mail or through the use of telephone, and increasingly now through the use of interactive voice response systems where people can call in, and which are, the technology is so inexpensive that even small businesses can think about having those kinds of
That's
systems.
like the supermarket, which have these membership cards, which establish for them a complete pattern of the purchasing habits in terms of dollars, type of purchase, frequency of purchase, and they have a picture of that individual customer. This is what you're talking about. Let's go on. This is not a 3-hour program, so I want to cover all of this. How about some of the other degrees?
Well, after relationship, where that involves, as Janet described, the rewards and recognition for being a customer and requires the use of a database. We have the 2 degrees of bonding, which are not that often seen out there, and that the first one of those 2 is we call community. And this is a special situation where the marketer gets their customers together and creates a community of customers. This is, for example, right here in White Plains, there's a Harley-Davidson dealership, and the dealership is used as a center of activity for the local Harley Owners Group club. So and as you probably aware, Harley-Davidson owners are among the most loyal customers that there are because of that identity bond we think of as being a reason for that. But they also in getting their customers together, by creating a community of interest and connections between their customers, they really are enhancing long-term loyalty because now if I stop using that product, it means that not only do I unplug myself from the product, but I also unplug myself from the community of other users. Back in the old days, when I had my first Volkswagen Beetle, we used to, honk horns and flash our lights at each other because there was a community of people like that, and that's what we're talking about. You by virtue of using a product or being someone's customer, you get to join a club in a sense of users who have an interest that's common to your interest.
Before we get on to the next degree, what I want to do is to show the people your book.
Thanks.
And and we are talking today to Richard Cross and to Janet Smith, who are the authors of the book called Customer Bonding, and that's the subject that we're discussing today. Let's go on to the next degree. What is it? Where are we now? 3rd degree, 4th degree, 5th degree?
This is the 5th degree.
The 5th degree is the highest degree, and it's what we call advocacy bonding. And that's where, again, not very many companies really do this. And those that have figured it out have really made quite an amazing inroad in their marketplace. For example, MCI, Friends and Family Program. It's a classic example, and it's one that we use in the book of advocacy bonding. It's where you want to turn your customers into your champions. That's the simplest way of putting it. They go out and sell for you. And, in old advertising parlance, that would be referral selling. You want to word of mouth
advertising.
You want people to basically advocate for you, your products and services. Now, we didn't say, and I probably should say now, that underlying all of this, we take as a prerequisite for any type of loyalty marketing effort that the product and service is of high quality, that the customer's experience of your service or your firm is outstanding. And, in fact, a lot of other loyalty related efforts by authors have focused more on customer service. We take quality customer service for granted here, that you have to be doing that. But assuming that you are providing a good product, now
At
what
a good
do you
price,
do?
I assume.
At a good price, at a reasonable price. People are getting fair value. You can probably expect a lot of people are going to go out and tell their friends, well, this is who I use and this has been a great service for me.
I have heard that the best business is not business that you go out and seek, but the business that comes to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the business that comes to you comes because of the things that you've said, is that you have been visible,
Right.
and that people have recommended you.
Mm-hmm.
And you certainly have crystallized that into these points that you're making here.
But moreover, we'd like to encourage business owners to think in terms of empowering people to do this, offering an incentive even to a customer to go out and offer your service to another customer is not a bad thing to do. And essentially that's what MCI Friends and Family found out. And they earned 2 market share points against AT&T when they launched that program. And we're talking $500,000 per market share point. So
I want to relate all of this down to the small business. A lot of this thinking, the examples are for larger businesses. This takes time. This costs money. The small business is working under a limited budget. Finances are tough. The time is not there. How does one do it if it's a one-person or a two-person business or a small retail store? How do you find the time and the dollars to get involved with the sort of things you're talking about?
a little bit every day.
Yeah, it's a business owner has to break into their schedule somewhere to make a difference in what's going on. Otherwise, if they just continue doing what they've been doing, there will be no change. We would recommend that they take a look at these 5 degrees and start by tackling one of them. It's not necessary in all cases to do all 5 degrees, which is a little overwhelming, even to big businesses, and difficult to do. But let's say, for example, choose the higher levels of bonding, which are easier to do for small businesses. Getting your customers together, if there's a reason for doing that. Simply asking your customers for referrals is such an easy thing to do and costs nothing. Put up a sign in your store. Send them a letter saying that if you're satisfied with my business, satisfied with my service and my product, please send me the names of people who you think would also like to hear from me. Very inexpensive.
There's an old salesman phrase that says, "Don't forget to ask for the order," and
Exactly.
what you're saying is, don't forget to ask for the recommendation.
Right, and then and use that. Just don't stop there. Use that as the beginning of working through the degrees of customer bonding. For example, if you're asking people to refer business, make sure you get the names of the people who are being referred, and so that you can build a database and start that all-important relationship bonding level. And you'll find, as we do in our own business, the establishment and the building of a database is not difficult if you do it a little bit at a time. You get the software you can buy off the shelf, and you begin accumulating data and information on your customers that then starts telling you things about who are you, that you can identify your best customers, and you'll know a little bit about them. And even as a small business person, you may not be aware of where all your business is coming from.
People, I've heard them say so often, "I don't have the time," and my response to that is, everybody has the same amount of time. It's just that you haven't assigned the right priorities.
How you allocate your time.
Sure.
And you said a little bit at a time, a little bit each day, and of course that's the thing. It is an integral part of being successful in business, is to spend some of your time not on your customers, but on yourself.
That's right.
And that's where you make the time, where you establish the priority and say, this is what I'm going to do today.
Every business has to allocate 20, 30% of time. Like a small business should be thinking about 20 or 30% of their time needs to be dedicated to building the business in one way or another, either bringing a new business or establishing tighter relationships with your existing customers, or the day will come when you don't have the business, and then you really will be in trouble.
This whole concept of bonding is a tremendous one, because what it does is takes these truths, which people may know in pieces or see in pieces, and puts it together in a human way. Bonding is a term that to me conveys warmth and maybe hugging and saying, you know, have you hugged a client today, or have you hugged a customer today?
Right.
And that's what I get from just the title of your book. I'm sure you chose that term very carefully when you came up with it. Did you go through a lot of different words before you came up with bonding?
Oh yes, it was quite a drawn out
Variations.
process. but you're right that bonding says that you're doing something with your customer, and not just something to them. And we start out, maybe because of my own background in the consumer movement, with the idea that
You were with the
Consumer Reports magazine,
Uh-huh.
and that in order to have a lasting bond, there has to be trust. There has to be a good product and a good price and good value, and so forth. But there's beyond that something that happens between the people, and it has to go beyond.
But you're using the
dialogue.
word trust. I think it's much broader than just trust. I think it's much broader than having people trust you. It's a question of an interrelationship, a two-way street. The word "with" is one that impresses me, and I assume that your book is available in bookstores and certainly in business sections, and that it's, I hope, the first of many titles that will be coming out. How long have you been working on it?
Well, we started in summer of '93.
Oh, that's not so long.
Came with the first draft. We've been thinking about it for a while before that, and frankly, we would like to keep bringing in new materials, new case studies, because we find that everywhere we look, people are trying to do this.
I'd like you to come back and talk to us when you have your next book. And it's been great having you here. And I'm going to bond with my customers right now and tell everyone that we've been talking about the book called Customer Bonding. And my guests today have been Richard Cross and Janet Smith, the authors. The name of this program is Business Talk, and I'm Norman Less. And until next time at this time, good luck.